When my sister and I were born, the imperial diviner said that twin princesses were an ill omen, so my sister was sent to the border to be raised by our uncle. The border was bitterly cold, she couldn't endure the daily training, fled, was captured by the enemy, and reduced to a lowly servant. As for me, I was raised in luxury and deeply favored by the emperor, and I was to be allied with the state of Jiang. Marrying there would make me a noble empress. My elder sister, seething with hatred, hid among the bridal escort and poisoned me, but I never expected we would be reborn this time. She was the first to draw the long stick that meant staying behind, then you can have a taste of the hardships on the frontier, but she didn't know that the seemingly glamorous inner palace was the real hell. 2 princesses. From now on your fates are for you to decide. Everyone in the hall stared at the 2 bamboo lots in the national instructor's hand, one long and one short, determined which of us and my sister could stay in the palace, and which would have to go with our uncle to the bitter, unbearable frontier. Qin Wanning couldn't wait and shoved me aside. I'll choose first. After speaking, she pulled away the one on the right, and as she had expected, it was the long one. Qin Wanning clutched the bamboo skewer in her hand as if it were a life-saving straw, and let out a fierce sigh of relief. Our mother is just a slight beauty. In this solemn hall she has no place to speak. She has always been timid, but at this moment she couldn't help tugging at Qin Wanning's sleeve. Why are you being so improper today? In her eyes, Qin Wanning had always been sensible and obedient. She couldn't understand why she was so impulsive today. She didn't see the schadenfreude in Qin Wanning's eyes as she looked at me. We didn't even know we were both reborn too. We are twins. But the Grand Preceptor said twin princesses are an ominous sign and will surely undermine Great Ju's destiny after the age of 12, unless only one twin remains. After all, he was the imperial heir, so the emperor discussed with his ministers for several days and came up with a plan. They would send one of the princesses to the frontier and raise her as a boy, thereby fooling heaven. Qin Wanyan always performed well on the surface. In the previous life, to stay behind, she showed filial piety daily before her father and mother. In the end she even displayed her elder sister's magnanimity, saying you choose first only to be chosen to remain. She reluctantly went with her uncle to the frontier, but she hadn't expected life there to be so harsh. There were no splendid clothes and no exquisite food. Besides being out in the wind and sun every day, her uncle was extremely strict, making her squat in a horse stance daily and learn to wield swords and spears. At last, Qin Wanning couldn't take it anymore. She took all her uncle's money and fled into the night, but she overestimated her own sense of direction. She wandered into the wrong direction and stumbled into the enemy camp. The enemy immediately captured her. To save her life, Qin Wanning had no choice but to reveal her identity, and she even betrayed her uncle by divulging his border defense strategies. The enemy used her both as a bargaining chip to negotiate with her uncle and as a plaything, keeping her and abusing her at will. Qin Wanning barely survived and finally found an opportunity to escape. She betrayed the Great Ju and dared not return. Fleeing all the way, she somehow slipped into my wedding procession. By then, I was already renowned throughout Great Ju. Even 3-year-olds knew that Princess Zhaohua was peerless in grace, master of the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting, and deeply favored by the emperor of Great Ju. Jiang, first among the 5 kingdoms, sought my hand. As long as I married, I would become the most exalted empress. Compared to Qin Wanning, it was heaven and earth apart. No one remembers the other princess suffering far away on the frontier. Qin Wanning went mad. Clearly we share the same blood, and clearly father favored her more than me. Why did she meet such an end? While I basked in limitless glory, Qin Wanning poisoned me to death, consumed by hatred. So having been reborn, she couldn't care about propriety or decorum at all. By any means she had to stay as she wished. The one who was finally chosen to go with uncle to the frontier was me. Uncle had fought for years. His whole being was full of harshness that made people hesitate to approach. This time he rode hard to return and fetch me. When the dust settled and we stepped out of the hall, he looked at me with some reluctance, as if he wanted to ruffle my hair, but noticing the rough, thick calluses on his own hand, he drew it back. Zhaohua, thank you for your hard work. I smiled and tugged his hand. Since uncle returned to Beijing to report last time, it's been 5 years since we last saw each other. Uncle, hurry up and tell me what's fun in the Northwest. The date for leaving for the frontier was set. Mother couldn't stop worrying about me. She sewed clothes for me with her own hands and held me every night as I slept. Even the busy emperor still took time every day to talk with me, which made me somewhat reluctant. Qin Wanning saw this but said nothing. My mother comforted her. Wanning, your younger sister is about to leave the palace. We are worried and have neglected you these past days. Qin Wanning once again became magnanimous and gentle. I understand, and I'm also really reluctant to part with my little sister. Only I know she's not actually generous at heart, she's just stopped caring this time. She will become Princess Wen Ning, basking in all the glory and wealth, and marry the young, accomplished emperor of Jiang country. As for me, she can't wait to see what fate has in store. She was convinced that that unbearably bitter frontier would make me as unhappy as she had been in her past life, but what she didn't know was that this seemingly glamorous inner palace was the real hell. In future times of great chaos, in such a turbulent world, military power will be the true path to rulership. 3. The northwestern desert is indeed hard to endure. After only 3 days here, my delicate skin began to crack. My uncle told me to stay in the tent and wanted to find someone to bring me a coal brazier, but I refused. Uncle, this is the Northwest, it does not raise delicate princesses. Now that I have come, stop treating me like a princess. Uncle looked at me deeply and said, you must understand, even if you weren't a princess, an ordinary woman couldn't survive here. I nodded in response. So please teach me martial skills, uncle, and let me study strategy and tactics under you. From today on, I'm just the most ordinary soldier here. Uncle froze for a moment, a hint of astonishment flashing in his eyes. He hadn't expected me to say what he wanted to say ahead of him. Good, he was overjoyed. As long as you want to learn, I will teach you everything I have. My uncle was the Northwestern commander, strict in military discipline. From the second day on, he required me to rise at the 5th watch each day to train strength with the soldiers, drill basic spear techniques in the afternoons, and study the military strategies he had annotated at night. At first I couldn't hold a horse stance for long. The men were ordered not to treat me any differently, so someone deliberately picked on me, purposely choosing me during practice sessions and beating me until I was a mess. I knew my uncle wanted me to understand that the Northwest is a place where strength truly speaks, so I trained desperately. Since I started off behind, I had to spend more time than others. 3 years later, my body grew stronger and the gun in my hand keener. Once again a sparring match. The one who had always pinned me to the ground and beaten me was the one pounding the floor and begging for mercy this time. The youth named Zhao Yuan had his arm twisted behind his back, gritting his teeth in pain, yet still smiling. The general was right. You are harsh on yourself, and even harsher on others. I let him go, too lazy to bother with him. Hurry up and get up. Go patrol with the general. Uncle took us to see the northwest border. He said that now in the dead of winter, the river is frozen over, and the Qiong and Rong armies have to focus on survival first and won't come. But I suddenly remembered that in my previous life, around this time the court received a battle report. A sharp drop in temperature hit the northwest, and the river formed thick ice. The enemy army crossed the river at night, stepping on ice. The northwest was ambushed with heavy casualties. Uncle, they have no food or warm clothing, so they'll surely think of robbing us. If the river's surface forms thick ice, might they cross at night to launch a sneak attack? Uncle's expression changed. Go quickly and check the thickness of the ice. As I said, the ice is already thick enough for horses to cross without any trouble. My uncle urgently deployed troops, and to our surprise, that very night he lay in wait and caught the raiding enemy. It was my first time on the battlefield, and I fought to my heart's content. A great victory in this battle. Father Emperor was overjoyed. With the year's end approaching, he summoned my uncle back to the capital to receive his reward. In my previous life, the first time Qin Wanning returned to the capital after leaving was around this time as well. I'm a bit curious whether, this time, she managed to live the life of luxury she wanted in the palace, for from the day I left the capital, the palace proclaimed to the world that Princess Zhaohua had suddenly died of a violent illness. From this day on, there will be no more Princess Zhaohua in this world. So this time when I went back, I disguised myself as a man and traveled along as my uncle's adopted son, a low-ranking deputy officer. My imperial father received us, beaming with joy, and after rewarding us for our merits, he kept me back alone. Zhaohua, have these years been hard on you? He wanted to take my hand, only to suddenly realize that my hands were rougher than those of the palace maids who do the sweeping, and he was briefly stunned. I bowed in a minister's salute. Though your daughter cannot fulfill her filial duty by serving at Father Emperor's side, she guards the border on your behalf, and it is no hardship. Father Emperor's face lit up with imperial delight. Good, a reward. Father granted me a golden whip and even specially allowed me to stay in the palace for a few days. I originally wanted to visit my mother, but as soon as I reached the imperial garden, I ran into Qin Wenning. Over the years, I've changed, and so has she. At this moment she was dressed in opulent palace attire, a hand warmer tucked in her hands, her head adorned with jewels and hairpins. Then look at me, I seem more like a refugee fleeing calamity. We were twins. But now we don't look much alike anymore. Qin Wanning covered her mouth and snickered. Sister, you've suffered quite a bit over the years, haven't you? Just look at your face, it's not even as good as Chuantao's. Chundao is her close maid, and at her words she laughed along with her. I remained unmoved. Sister, you're overthinking it. I'm doing quite well. The environment in the northwest may be harsh, but I can gallop freely, have made many friends, learned the use of blade, spear, and sword. And there I can take control of my own fate. This is the truth. But Qin Wanning didn't believe it. In her eyes I must be putting on a brave face. Before she could say anything else, a group of people charged over, flaring and urgent, with a woman's sharp rebuke cutting through. Trash, if my kite is lost, I'll make you pay with your lives. It was the usual overbearing eldest sister, the Empress's only daughter, Yongning. I was dressed inconspicuously, and she didn't notice me at first. She only saw Qin Wanning. So it's you. She looked down at her from on high, casting her a sidelong glance. Qin Wanning paid her respects with utmost deference. I greet royal sister and wish you well. Yongning's eyes twitched, and she slyly instructed those beside her. You don't need to look for my kite. Let my sister go. Wenning, aren't you the best at pleasing me? Qin Wanning's face went pale in an instant. She bit her lip hard, feeling embarrassed. To be honest, I wasn't surprised. In her previous life, Yongning was the most untouchable person in this palace. Relying on being born of the Empress, she bullied all her younger siblings. Qin Wanqing dared not resist and could only grit her teeth, climbing the tree to retrieve the kite. Unfortunately, the tree trunk was too slippery in winter, and she lost her balance and fell down, landing right into the lotus pond, looking utterly disheveled. Ha 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 ha, I'm dying of laughter. Sister, you really know how to amuse me. Yongning laughed heartily, and her attendants followed suit, laughing along. At this moment, my not smiling face makes me stand out. 5. Yongning's gaze falls on me, and she finally recognizes me. You're back. 6th Sister Zhaohua, who was supposed to be dead. Outside the palace they declared me dead, but some people inside the palace still know the truth. Yongning circled me with a look of disdain and said, for all that you're a princess, just look at you. What are you wearing? Some ragged torn clothes. TSK, haven't bathed for days, have you? She belittled me, and Qin Wanyan inexplicably felt pleased. She took a malicious delight in watching me, hoping I'd be bullied too. Yongning intended the same. She pointed at the kite that hadn't been retrieved and said, your sister couldn't get it down, so you go get it. That tree isn't tall. Retrieving the kite is absolutely effortless for me, but why should I? Are you sure? Yongning said impatiently. You dare defy my order. I let out an "oh," pulled out the gold whip. Father Emperor had just rewarded me with. Snapped a fierce lash, and the kite was shredded to pieces. The kite's frame happened to land at Yongning's feet. Took it down for you. She was livid. You bitch. Guards, seize her whip. The eunuchs swarmed forward. I didn't resist, letting them snatch my whip and burn it. Qin Wanning stared at me in disbelief. I glanced at her sidelong. Is this the life you wanted? Even though she was soaked through and in a sorry state, she still forced herself to deny it. Besides this, I'm doing just fine. Heh, Qin Zhaohua, aren't you also afraid to go against Yongning, who says, when they were almost done burning things and were about to come and teach me a lesson? I slapped my forehead as if I'd just remembered something. I just forgot to mention, this whip was a reward from father just now. He said that seeing the whip in the palace is like seeing him. Yongning, who had just been about to stuff the whip's remains into my mouth. What should we do now? I looked at her and smiled. Slightly. You burned our father. 6. Yongning burning the imperial bestowed golden whip made it all the way to the emperor's presence. Of course, I was the one who raised the fuss. I don't even know how I offended Her Highness the imperial sister. She burned my whip without a word. I knelt before the emperor, saying one line after another. It must be that after so many years away from the capital, living in the northwest in constant fear, I forgot the palace rules and offended Her Highness the imperial sister. Uncle often taught me that the bitter-carrying ruse often works wonders. Yongning pointed at me as I was about to explain, and I kowtowed again. If it were any ordinary whip, burn it and be done. But that was bestowed by Father Emperor. I think of him day and night, and I meant to take the whip to the northwest so that whenever I missed him I could take it out and look at it. People's hearts are made of flesh. Father Emperor already felt guilty toward me, and when I said this, his guilt doubled. Yongning's face flushed with anger. Why didn't you say so back then? Her question caused tears to well up in my eyes. My sister did say something. But even if the whip was bestowed by anyone, didn't your Imperial Highness just burn it without hesitation? Yongning was about to say more, when suddenly she snapped back to awareness. I'm saying she's showing contempt for the Emperor's favor and defying her superiors. She dropped to her knees with a thud and argued loudly, Father Emperor, please see clearly, that wretch is slandering me. You keep calling her a wretch. She's your sister. Father Emperor thundered. You still think the trouble you've caused isn't big enough? Then, with a complicated look, he helped me up and sighed. I truly owe you so much. Although he seemed to be taking my side, Yongning wasn't worried. She even left with a menacing threat. We'll see about that. But she didn't expect the punishment to be this severe. Not only was she herself confined and fined her stipend, the emperor also ordered a matron from the inner court to personally discipline her, making her stand as punishment for 3 hours every day. Even the empress was implicated, publicly rebuked by the emperor for failing to teach her daughter properly. Only after everything was over did I have time to go see mother. She burst into tears as soon as she saw me, grabbed me and chatted on about many things, and finally, hesitantly, said, Zhao Hua, you should also help. Mother, persuade your sister. Only then did I learn that Qin Wanning, staying in the palace, not only skipped school every day but repeatedly drove away teachers who taught Qin chess, calligraphy, and painting. She often dressed as a young man to hang out on the streets with those sons of prominent families. I've heard that many young men are infatuated with her. What a disgrace. Mother only told me this because she was truly at her wit's end. She can't understand why Qin Wanning, as a princess, would do something that lowers her status like this, but I do know because in my previous life, the rumors about me, Princess Zhao Hua was peerless in grace. Whenever she appeared, aristocratic youths would spur their horses to follow, just for a glimpse of her. Qin Wanning wanted to compete with me in everything, so she wanted those men's love as well. I truly can't figure it out. Are those lousy men's love really that valuable? Now when I think back on the way they looked at me, I feel sick. 7. Qin Wanning lost face with me, and then turned around to fill her vanity with other people's flattery and admiration. She was disguised as a man, galloping wildly down the street with those rakes. When I had just left my uncle's residence, I saw that her riding skills were clumsy, yet those men were still cheering. WN Ning truly is unlike ordinary women. She makes us see her in a new light. Praise to the skies. Qin WN Ning grew even more smug. She charged straight at the child standing dazed in the middle of the road, trying to vault over his head. Damn it, ignoring the women's clothes I was wearing, I quickly pulled out a veil to cover my face and sent Qin WN Ning flying with a kick. Then I yanked hard on the reins, forcing the horse to turn. Impudent. Do you know what you've kicked? Qin Wanning. Come to the palace and find me. I left a cold remark, ignored the venom in Qin Wanning's eyes, and rode straight toward the palace gate. Qin Wanning was driven mad with rage. What made me even angrier was that after I left, those men came to their senses and actually asked her, is she also a girl from the palace? So dashing and valiant. Qin Wanning suddenly froze, a chill crept up her back, and an unprecedented sense of danger washed over her. I've only been back a few days, and Father Emperor has already scolded the ever-favored Yongning for my sake. Now I haven't even shown my face, yet these noble sons are already drawn to me. If this keeps up, will Father Emperor keep me here and send her away? Remembering the suffering of my previous life, Qin Wanning's heart trembled with fear. She hadn't yet become famous throughout the capital, hadn't yet waited for the Emperor of Jiang to propose and make her the most honored empress in the world. How could she be at ease to get herself back to the border sooner? Qin Huaning took a desperate risk and used a trick. The imperial preceptor said the year her father ascended the throne that generals bring disaster to a nation, so now the Great Jew values civil affairs over military ones. When Qin Huanyan paid respects to the emperor, she casually mentioned that a few days ago she had gone to see her uncle, and her uncle seemed very displeased with the funds the emperor had given the army. That same day the emperor, citing that the border could not be left unattended, ordered her uncle to return immediately. He feared her uncle would form alliances with court officials. That night he secretly summoned me and told me that after I returned to the border I must keep a close eye on my uncle. And if my uncle showed any disloyal intent I must report it at once. I agreed without showing any emotion. Leaving the study, all the blood in my body rushed to my head. I barged straight into Qin Huaning's room, grabbed her, and shoved her into the water-filled lotus tank. Qin Zhaohua, are you crazy? 8. I can see you're not thinking straight. Let me snap you out of it. When the nest is overturned, how can any egg remain intact? Her uncle was her own flesh and blood, yet Qin Huaning once again pushed him toward a dead end. Yes, that's exactly what she did in her previous life. 3 years after returning to the capital, in order to stay, she deliberately told the emperor that her uncle harbored treacherous intentions. From then on the emperor grew wary of the border commanders and deliberately withheld silver and grain, causing the Great Jew to be defeated again and again. Later she escaped but was captured by the Chongrong army. To stay alive she sold out intelligence, leading to the deaths of tens of thousands of soldiers on the frontier. Qin Huaning struggled and pushed me away, laughing a little manically. You're angry and humiliated. Qin Zhaohua, I knew you wanted to stay and replace me. I'll tell you, the only one who can stay is me. Foolish. Looking at her smug expression, I only found it laughable. She can't endure the hardships of the frontier, and in this life she doesn't even want to suffer the hardships of the palace, but she doesn't know that all. My past life's boundless glory was earned by me, bit by bit. In my previous life, Yongning was arrogant too, yet I was never bullied because she didn't dare. I got up earlier than everyone else every day and went to bed later than everyone else. I was first in all my studies, and excelled at Qin, chess, calligraphy, and painting. 1 year, envoys from a neighboring country visited and presented a challenge in public. They had a half-composed piece that had remained unfinished for generations in their country, and they asked our princes and princesses to complete the second half. For a time it stumped everyone. The visiting envoys grew even more arrogant in the hall, proclaiming that our nation of rights and music was nothing special. Father the emperor was in a very bad mood. Everyone else gave up, but I persisted, enduring 2 days and 2 nights, and before the envoys left I produced a stunning composition. Father the emperor was overjoyed and valued me even more. A steady stream of rewards flowed my way. Are others green with envy? Of course, but do they dare to cross me? Of course not. Still, because the emperor favors me, I've become the token he flaunts to the outside world. Whenever there's a foreign visit or a grand state banquet, there is always a seat for me at his side. Back then, I was the face of Great Jew. I was ruthless with myself, so I made myself a one-of-a-kind princess. That irreplaceability also became the support that allowed my mother and me to survive safely in the deep palace. It's the same in this lifetime. Yongning has always been favored by Father Emperor. If I were merely a princess, quarrels between sisters would not stir up any waves. But this time I came back to receive my reward as a vice-commandant. Behind me stand the soldiers who have held the frontier in the northwest through hardship. If I'm treated harshly in the capital and word gets back, I fear it will wound the soldiers' hearts. No matter who I am, I must have my own value. Unfortunately, Qin Huaning has never understood this. She only knew that in my previous life I stayed in the palace, admired by sons of noble families and dearly favored by the emperor, so she assumed the two were causally linked. Just like now, she leaned close to my ear and swore solemnly, I'll tell you a secret. In the future I will marry the Emperor of Jiang and become the most exalted empress under heaven. As for you, just wait to die in that bitter, frozen land. I curved my lips slightly. Looks like in her past life she heard plenty of love stories about me and the Emperor of Jiang, how I saved him from assassins during the Chiqiao festival. The Emperor of Jiang fell in love with me at first sight, and would marry no one but me. Too bad, none of that is true. 9. I could very well remind Qin Wanning and help her find her way back, but why should I? We've both lived 2 lives, each walking our own path. That's only fair. Moreover, Qin Wanning envied and hated me, and I hated her just the same. In my past life I had struggled and at last reached the highest point a woman could reach. I had intended, by my abilities, to make father abandon arranging my marriage. I could, as a woman, enter the court and win a precedent for all women under heaven, but because of Qin Wanning, the border suffered a crushing defeat, and the Qiong and Rong armies pushed southward to protect the realm. Father sought aid from the Jiang state. Their condition was that our court submit, pay tens of millions of taels of gold, and, in addition, send me as a bride. All the skills I spent the first half of my life learning will end here, never to see the light of day again. What Qin Wanning cut off was not only my path, but the path of all women in the world. Given a second life, she is still the same. Why should I save her? When I passed by the border between Zhu and Jiang on my way back to the northwest, the people along the road said that the great Jiang Emperor was about to tour the 4 states, and the first place he would visit was Great Zhu. They also said that this trip was for him to choose an empress. This news will reach Great Zhu in a few days, and Qin Wanning will surely make a big move on the road. I relayed everything Father Emperor told me to my uncle. He fell silent for a long time after hearing this. His Majesty actually suspects me to this extent. He has guarded the borders for so many years, only to be met with the Emperor's suspicion. How could he not feel chilled to the core? I sat on my horse, expression calm. Since they all say we're disloyal, why not make it true? My uncle was startled and glanced warily to either side. Zhao Hua, mind your tongue. He was truly surprised that I could say something so treasonous, but from the day I was reborn I decided clearly. I want troops and I want power. Having finally escaped the deep palace that imprisoned me, of course I will spare no effort to soar upward. Uncle, don't be afraid, our people are all around. The northwest is our territory. Since the Emperor wants to suppress us through silver, food, and supplies, we'll do business on the military road and use the money we earn to buy grain. Of course, the most urgent thing right now is to drive those Qiong and Rong tribes back to their old homes. I faced the sunrise, my gaze blazing. My uncle glanced sideways at me for a long time, and finally couldn't help but burst into hearty laughter. Willing to follow my lord, the campaign to drive out the Qiong and Rong lasted an entire spring. We drove them from the border city to the Yellow River, and from the Yellow River back to the grasslands. Before early summer, they launched a desperate counterattack, and I was standing on the cliff, ordering the soldiers to scatter poplar catkins soaked in poison. With the east wind at our back, we wiped out those troops without losing a single man. But the dispatch sent back read, the Qiong and Rong troops are putting up a stubborn last-ditch resistance. Our forces are still driving them back. We need time to build up our own ranks. Just then, an informant of my uncle in the capital sent word. 10. The Emperor of Jiang wanted to choose a bride from among the princesses of Great Zhu to make his empress, and the final choice settled on Qin Wanning by status and rank. The first choice should have been Yongning, but on the day before the state banquet, Yongning slipped and fell into the pond. Thin ice cut her face and disfigured her. It said that the one who was with her at the time, only Qin Wanning. Qin Wanning is really ruthless. She would rather make an enemy of the empress and put her mother in danger, just to carve out a path for herself. But she doesn't know that placing your hopes on a man is the most foolish choice. I don't have time to worry about her now. I need to make money, stock provisions, and raise troops. I'm busy. Another summer passed, and my mother had someone send a letter to the northwest, asking my uncle and me to find a way to save Qin Wanning. She'd rather live and die than marry into Jiang. I looked at the letter and couldn't help raising my eyebrows. Oh ho, she finally realized something was off. Jiang is the foremost of the 5 nations, with a powerful army. If the emperor wants to marry an empress, wouldn't the other countries be scrambling to send candidates? Why would the emperor personally come to choose? Because their emperor is ill, insane. He had a violent temper and loved tormenting people, even harboring a taste for human flesh. He reigned for 7 years and took 5 empresses, none of whom survived a month after that. No minister in their country was willing to let his daughter enter the palace. No one knows who came up with the idea, But they told Emperor Jiang that girls of royal blood were the most tender and delightful, so Emperor Jiang personally toured the various states, solely to select the most delectable empress. This news was suppressed by Jiang, yet it wasn't exactly a well-kept secret. Qin Wanning likely wanted to learn about her future husband so she could cater to his tastes and win his favor. She never imagined she would glimpse such a terrifying truth. Now, no matter what anyone says, she refuses to marry, but the empress said that for the sake of relations between the two countries, even if she had to die, she must die in Jiang. Yongning was disfigured by Qin Wanning. The empress hated her to the bone and couldn't wait to see her downfall. Mother begged me to save her, but how could I? Wasn't this path the one she chose herself? I wanted to watch from the sidelines, but I underestimated how despicable Qin Wanning could be. Seeing there was no room to turn things around, she gritted her teeth and, at the palace banquet held to bid her farewell, drugged the Prime Minister's son. That son of the Prime Minister was lustful by nature and couldn't resist temptation, so he ended up tumbling into bed with her. That disgraceful scene was caught by everyone that day. The emperor's anger and anguish overwhelmed him. He ordered the execution of every palace attendant who had been seen. Qin Wanyan fell to her knees, crying that she had been wronged, claiming it was the Prime Minister's son who, taking advantage of her while she was drunk, had assaulted her. But she had already lost her purity. If she were married off to the state of Jiang in this condition, the Jiang emperor would surely be enraged and might take military action against Great Ju. If that happened, with Jiang and the Qiong nomads attacking together, Great Ju would be in grave danger. At this point, there's only one last option, and that is for me, who looks exactly like Qin Wanning, to take her place in marriage. Father didn't even think twice before drafting a secret decree, ordering me to hurry back to the capital to prepare for the wedding. With the immediate crisis resolved, they were overjoyed, never imagining that marrying me off would be a dead end all the same. But they don't know that the Qiong and Rome crisis has been resolved, and I am no longer at anyone's mercy. 11. My uncle was so furious when he heard the news that he kicked the table over. They don't care whether you live or die, and they're making you marry in her place. Zhaohua, we won't wait any longer. Let's gather the troops and head back. I want to see who dares force you to marry. I burst into hearty laughter. Marry? Of course I'll marry. Uncle was completely baffled. I looked at the map of the Great Ju and smiled. Uncle, now that we have troops, do you know what we still lack? My uncle was taken aback, then suddenly realized, it's the hearts of the people. That's right. My marriage to secure the nation is a righteous act. Contrasted with Qin Wanning, it wins over both the ministers and the common people. What's more, going back isn't marching to my death. After discussing with my uncle all night, the next day we took elite riders and rushed back to the capital. Father Emperor was so infuriated by Qin Wanning that he suffered recurrent bouts of apoplexy, sometimes better, sometimes worse. After hearing my uncle's and my plan, he was so frightened he kept coughing. You want the army to disguise itself as a wedding escort, and after entering Jiang territory, charge straight for their imperial city. He was shocked. No, if it fails, wouldn't Great Ju be in grave danger? The Grand Preceptor was timid and fearful as well, and hurried to stop it. This must never happen. Last night I observed the heavens, and as long as the princess marries for alliance, our Great Ju will enjoy favorable weather and good harvests for decades. Why resort to war? I looked at him coldly. As long as Jiang remains, Great Ju will never know peace. Your Majesty, please reconsider. The Grand Preceptor was still blustering. I have divined the fate of Great Ju, if we launch a war this time. Before he could finish, I drew a blade across his throat. Blood sprayed across my face, but I calmly wiped my knife without a change in expression. So damn talkative. 5 years ago he used some so-called calculations to haphazardly decide my fate, and now he wants to use the same excuse to send me to my death. But I don't believe in heaven. I only believe in myself. Anyone who stands in my way can die first. Father Emperor had never seen such a bloody scene and was so terrified he couldn't utter a word. I respectfully clasped my hands to him. Please, Your Majesty, issue the decree at once. The bridal escort must be grand and imposing. His face turned pale. I shall think about it. Yet I smiled gracefully. Father Emperor, you misunderstand. This is not a request. 12. Spread the news that I will soon be married far away to the state of Jiang. I've heard the bridal procession will stretch for thousands of li, with countless palace attendants sending me off for a time. Everyone said that Princess Wn Ning was deeply favored by the emperor. As for the real Wn Ning, after doing something like that and earning the empress's resentment, the emperor was already showing mercy by not killing her. All they could do was negotiate a marriage alliance with the prime minister's residence, but the prime minister's residence was unwilling. After all, Wn Ning no longer held the title of princess, and for the rest of her life she could not appear in public. The Prime Minister's residence did not need a principal wife hidden away in the deep inner quarters. They only agreed to take her as a concubine. Even so, Qin Wanning still felt she had one. On the day she left the palace, I was in the palace trying on my wedding robes, my head adorned with jewels, so very splendid. Qin Wanning deliberately took a detour to see me. She circled me, eyeing me from head to toe, her gaze as if upon a corpse. My dear sister, cherish this moment. Everything you have now is bestowed by me. Though I may be in ruins, at least I'm still alive. I looked at her without emotion. Such a foolish sister of mine. We're all vying for the world, and you're still amusing yourself. Forget it. Ignorance is sometimes a blessing before the wedding. My uncle spent money to buy off over 100 storytellers, having them go to tea houses and taverns to say that Great Jew was beset on all sides, and that Princess Wanning, disregarding the danger, volunteered for a Qin marriage, resolving Great Jew's predicament. For a time, everyone sang her praises. On the day I left the city in my red wedding gown, the commoners knelt in 2 neat rows. In unison they shouted, "The princess's great righteousness, we respectfully see the princess off and wish her highness boundless good fortune." I journeyed on amid their blessings. The attendants escorting my bridal procession were my elite troops from the northwest, and hidden among the thousands of dowry chests were blades and weapons, and my uncle is leading tens of thousands of troops, waiting at the Zhejiang border to coordinate with me from inside and out. I wore a smile at the corner of my lips, lifting my head and squaring my shoulders. This didn't feel like a bridal procession, but rather a grand avenue sending me to ascend the throne. 13. Originally it was agreed that Jiang Nation would send a royal relative to fetch the bride, but I never expected their emperor to come in person. Perhaps confident in his strong forces and on his own territory, he hadn't even brought many soldiers. Let me see what kind of beauty my empress is. He led me down from the horse, and when our palms touched I sensed something was wrong. You're a princess, how are your palms so rough? But it was too late. I flipped my hand, and the blade was already pressed against his throat. If they weren't rough, how could I hold a knife? At my command, the bridal procession instantly became an elite force, and not far off, the thunder of hooves rolled in, as if 1,000 troops were sweeping toward us. Even with the fate of the mission in my hands, Emperor Jiang didn't panic much. He smiled. You do have courage, but do you really think your little state of Zhu can hope to shake the foundations of my state of Jiang? What if the 3 states joined forces? Emperor Jiang's expression changed drastically. The state of Jiang had long behaved tyrannically, the other states had long harbored grievances, but they hadn't yet reached the point of being unable to endure. Not until now did he set his sights on princesses of foreign countries. He chose me this time. Next time, which family's princess will it be? My uncle's confidant Zhao Yuan took my seal and went to Chen and Yang to weigh the pros and cons. Both kingdoms have few heirs, each has only one princess, treasured like a gem. Zhao Yuan, invoking my name, persuaded them to send troops. Now the 3 states besiege. Jiang is in peril. I shed the cumbersome wedding robes and donned the cold armor, capturing Jiang's first border city for the first time as the vanguard. Then came the second, the third. 5 months of rapid advance. The vast Jiang kingdom was almost carved up clean. I originally planned to bring back more land, but sudden news came from the capital. Father the emperor is gravely ill. To force him to pass the throne to her son, the empress has put him under house arrest. I've been fighting hard on the battlefield, and you're taking credit for my achievements. How is that acceptable? Without another word, I'll lead the troops back and clean up those small fry. When Father Emperor saw me, he was practically moved to tears. Zhao, you're back. I held his hand, embodying the profound bond between father and daughter. Father, please do not worry. Your health is paramount. My health is failing. Zhao, I cannot bear to think of the great Zhu dynasty. What do you think? How does your elder brother feel about this? I pretended to ponder. Eldest brother has not a drop of learning in him, he's no talent for governing a country. Father Emperor was taken aback. And what about the second one? Incorrigible and unworthy, unfit for great responsibility. That fifth one, he's still so young, difficult. Indeed, before father could speak again, I cut him off with a smile. Father Emperor is in good health. Why rush to appoint a crown heir so early? There's no need to hurry, your daughter is back, and you can be at ease now. Father Emperor is not at ease, because he went from being confined by the Empress to being confined by me. In fact, there's not much difference. 14 I'll leave external matters to my uncle. I'll only take part in decision-making for a time. Things actually quieted down in the palace. Every mid-autumn, the palace holds a grand banquet to entertain the court officials, but this year the emperor fell seriously ill, and I had confined the empress, and the inner court didn't know whether they should hold it, so they came to ask me, hold it, not only hold it, but make it a grand, lively affair. Now that the state of Jiang has fallen, this is a great cause for celebration. After receiving my order, the inner court immediately set about arranging it. I was worried my mother would be bored staying in the palace, so I had her help supervise, but I never expected mother to be in constant terror. Zhao, is it you who ordered people to guard your father's bedchamber day and night? I pretended not to hear and picked up some food for her. Try this, it's a specialty from the northwest, and I made it myself. She, however, took my hand. You have now rendered meritorious service in saving His Majesty. In the future, the Emperor will surely find you a good match, and you won't have to go to that frigid northwest again. Zhao, what more could you possibly want? Mother, you have never understood me. I lowered my eyes to her hands, tracing the thick calluses in my palm. You see my hands and assume no girl would want hers to become like this. You think it's hardship, but I regard it as an honor. You think finding a good match is a reward, but to me it's no different from having my hands and feet broken, being imprisoned to die. What I want is for no one to dare meddle with me again, for no one to control my fate. I want true freedom. My mother's eyes were filled with shock. Since ancient times, when has there ever been a woman who didn't depend on a man? Therefore, the old rules should change. I slowly wiped my hands, my tone calm, as plain as when I used to chat with her about family matters when I was a child. If I am to be the ruler, the court will be filled with those capable, regardless of gender. I just spoke my mind. My mother was so frightened that she dropped the bowls and chopsticks, shattering them. Zhao, don't do anything wrong. I called someone to clear away the porcelain shards and led my mother up onto the city wall. Since she entered the palace, she had been confined day and night to a small courtyard, never having stood this high before. I want to tell her that most women have shallow sights, seeing only their husbands and children, but our gaze can reach far, so far as to encompass the realm and the world. Mother, winners are never wrong. 15 In the end, my mother clasped my hand and stood on my side. She said, I have only one request, spare your sister. If Qin Wanning behaves herself from now on, I can treat her like thin air and it's fine by me. But the problem was, with a temper like hers, how could she possibly give up? It wasn't until she married into the Prime Minister's mansion that Qin Wanning finally realized how terribly wrong she had been. She had entered the household by such despicable means. After losing the title of princess, she couldn't even set foot inside the palace gates. With no natal family to rely on, others looked down on her even more. Qin Wanning knew that all she could do now was to hold on tightly to her husband. At least she still has her looks. Snagging a fool won't be a problem, and she'll have someone to rely on for the rest of her life. But how could Yongning, with her face ruined, possibly let it go? She gathered a host of beautiful maidservants and sent them all into the Prime Minister's residence. Those maidservants had been trained and knew far more tricks than Qin Wanning. It wasn't long before she was discarded. She had been kept in the small courtyard of the Chancellor's residence for months. No one sent her any news, and I suppose they didn't even know I had returned alive. Now that the Chancellor had seen the situation clearly, he wanted to curry favor with me. He was an old minister and knew of my relationship with Wn Ning, assuming I still cherished sisterly ties, so he brought Wn Ning to the Mid-Autumn Palace banquet. Until now, Qin Wanyan still thought it was her father who had remembered her and wanted to save her from misery, She had been intent on going to her father's presence to show filial piety, but unexpectedly met me outside his bedchamber. She had grown much thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, and looked at me as if she had seen a ghost. "Qin Zhaohua, you're not dead, what's going on? Didn't you marry into the Jiang state?" I just smiled and looked at her. "Are you surprised to see I'm not dead? You must have snuck back on your own." She eyed me a little nervously and muttered, "I'm going to tell father to send you back." "How could you come back alive? How could you?" "It's not that I can't come back alive, I just can't live better than her. 2 lifetimes lived in my shadow." Qin Wanning showed faint signs of madness. She was about to have someone announce us when Yongning saw her from inside. Qin Wanning's instantly looked like a mouse seeing a cat, too. Frightened to lift her head, there were faint scars on Yongning's face. She cast her an annoyed glance, then respectfully bowed to me and said, "Sister, Father Emperor has taken his medicine today, and his condition is stable." All right, she was sensible enough to know who the real master of the palace was now. Seeing this with her own eyes, Qin Wenning froze on the spot, her face turning ashen. 16 A few days later when my mother came to see me, "I had a bad feeling, sure enough," she said with great joy that Qin Wanning knew she had done many wrong things in the first half of her life and had now repented. She wanted to get along well with me from now on. She wanted to have a meal with me. Perhaps there was a hint of wishful thinking, or perhaps she wanted to see what exactly she was up to. I agreed. That night, Mother cooked herself and made a whole table of dishes, all our childhood favorites. Qin Wanning suddenly seemed normal, looking at me with tears in her eyes. "Sis, I hope I can spend the rest of my life living with Mother, and I hope you can forgive the wrongs I've done." I quietly looked at her, giving a gentle nod. Qin Wanping instantly lit up, taking my hand and saying, "Do you remember how we used to bathe together when we were young? Back then, it was so much fun. You're tired now. Let your sister wash your body for you." I just kept looking at her with a sense of guilt. Qin Wanning shifted her gaze away. "My silly sister, before scheming, at least conceal the malice in your eyes." I didn't expose her truth. Instead, as she had wished, I bathed with her. Under the pretext of wiping her back, she examined every inch of my skin. He remembered exactly where the scars and moles were. In the end, she said she would enter the Buddha hall to pray for blessings for the Emperor Father and Empress Mother for a while, and would come to see me at the beginning of next month. Mother was very happy. I looked at Mother's face, but my heart was colder than the icy depths of the Northwest in midwinter. After that, I went to see my father, the Emperor. Again, his illness was already very serious, but I used the excuse that his body was too weak to bear it and wouldn't allow the imperial physicians to use strong medicine, so it dragged on, and now he lies in bed emaciated, struggling even to speak. I sat down beside him and said coolly, "Father Emperor, the edict of abdication, are you still unwilling to write it to me?" He turned his eyes to look at me, the muscles in his face twitching slightly, as if scolding me for being a great traitor. "But Father Emperor, if you won't pass it to me, then who will you pass it to? Those useless people. You govern weakly and can't even protect your daughter. Those empty bags you've raised are good for nothing. What use are they?" I placed my hand on his, and could feel him trembling slightly. "Father Emperor, you don't have much time left." After a long while, he struggled to force out a single word. "All right, Father Emperor has figured it out. The imperial edict you wanted. I'll give it to you, Father Emperor. That's exactly how you should think. The weather's been nice lately. Tomorrow I'll take you to Putuo Temple for a stroll. With the Buddha's blessing, your illness will surely get better." 17. Putuo Temple is the temple where Qin Wenning prays for blessings. When she learned I was going, she couldn't wait to see me. I think she must already have found a way to forge identical scars. As long as she kills me, she can take my place. I sent someone to tell her that I'm waiting for her in the meditation room. I also settled Father Emperor there, thoughtfully covered him with a quilt, and pretended not to see the knife in his hand until I left. It's all over. 18. The 25th year of Qingyuan, the Emperor of Great Zhou, died at Putuo Temple, perishing together with the assassin. Qin Wanning learned I was fast asleep and, without hesitation, drove a knife into the quilt, her expression deranged. "Everything is mine, everything of yours will be mine, and my father." The Emperor, who had been feigning weakness all along, struggled to his feet and drove the blade into her chest, still cursing as he did. "Go to hell with your father. I will never hand the great Jew's realm over to a woman. At that moment, I stood just outside the door, listening to the commotion inside. Indifferent uncle stands by my side, guarding the gate for me. Am I being too cruel? Uncle sighs. You gave them a chance, Zhao Hua, to be an emperor. You're not even ruthless enough. But I have nothing left. I've lost my name, lost my family. The people closest to me are all scheming to harm me. When my mother learned of Qin Wanning's death, she was heartbroken and convinced that I couldn't tolerate her and killed her. Not exactly wrong. She said she never wanted to see me again, so she shaved her head and became a nun. But mother, I've been prepared for a long time. From the moment I was reborn, I knew the imperial path is piled with blood. I don't need family, and I can't afford a weak spot. This loneliness of possessing boundless rivers and mountains, I can bear it. 19 In the winter of the 25th year of Qing Yuan, the Empress Qin Zhaohua ascended the throne and changed the state name to Le. According to the historians, since the Empress ascended the throne, the state of Yu has flourished and grown ever more prosperous, steadily expanding its territory to become the foremost of the four nations, and no one dares invade. The Empress values both civil and military affairs, promoting the imperial examinations and holding martial exams. Women are allowed to enter the examination halls, and it is possible for them to be ennobled as marquises or appointed as prime ministers for a time. Talented people from all under heaven came to the court of Yu. Great virtue. The end.